I'm in the offices of Transeacure with Evan Moore and John Dodwell, who are directors of Transeacure, who run training courses in the security industry. And we're here today to talk about the Marine Security Operations course, which is a BTEC Level 3 course. And we're going to talk to John and Evan about if somebody wanted to get this qualification, the sort of people that would apply for it, the kind of things that are involved in the training, and what it actually qualifies you to do, and what jobs you can apply for should you get that qualification. So, Evan, can you tell us a little bit about your background in maritime security? First of all, just to set the scene, as it were.
Yeah, within our company setup, we've actually got all of our instructors all have specialist fields. So we all are a specialist in a specific area. Mine is maritime. Although I was in the Army, as I've said on a previous podcast, after I left the Army, I went to sea. I started off as a deckhand and ended up as a deck officer working on board merchant navy ships. So my expertise is obviously merchant shipping.
Yeah, does that take you all around the world?
No, I tended to stay more home trade and middle trade, which is sort of local area, Mediterranean sort of operations. I did a couple of foreign going trips, but not many.
What would you say are the main considerations when you're looking for security on board ships? What sort of things, day to day, do you have to look out for? Because it's not all what you might think as glamorous, stopping pirates and things like that, is it? It's more day-to-day security, I should imagine.
Yeah, the normal running duties of a ship are obviously, as a senior deck officer, one of my duties was to deal with the security implications whilst the ship was alongside and actually at sea at the same time.
Right, so that would be the security in the port on the side,
and
making sure any people that are authorised come aboard ship and things like that.
That's it. Anything where there's a ship-to-shore interface, i.e. the gangway is down, that then has to have a security officer at the top of the gangway to welcome anybody on board and obviously make sure people don't get on board that shouldn't be on board.
How many people would be in a team like that for
Again, it all depends on the shipping and the size of the vessel. You'll normally find on the gangway security, there'll normally be one operative that'll be doing the security details. He will obviously have comms links up to the bridge and be able to get down the officer of the day or the duty officer to come down to deal with any sort of issues that happen. And
John, you've had some experience in the security. It's about 5 years, I believe, in the maritime security industry. What's your experience?
Well, I've run ship security details for cruise ship lines in ports. I've also done gangway duties for numerous companies and Royal Fleet auxiliary ships. Right,
so between you, you've got a good number of years in this industry to sort of build on and to deliver this course. So if somebody was thinking of getting the qualification of Marine Security Operations, what kind of people do you say would be an ideal candidate? What sort of background would they normally have, either from the experience of people who have already done the course, but also what are you actually looking for in terms of personality, previous qualifications, and maybe even extra qualifications that people should have before they come on the course? Yeah,
that's a very, very good question. Again, taking it back a step, it comes down again before conducting the training to make sure that it's the right job for them, is for them to have a chat with us so that we can give them sort of a no-holds-barred sort of impression of what it's like to be at sea. Obviously, if they're coming from a nautical background, whether it be Royal Marine or Navy, then a lot of them will have done a bit of ship deployments and actually been, on postings, actually on board vessels. However, with a lot of the Army lads, it's very important that we do talk to them about it, because it's a little bit different than crossing the Channel. When you're out in the middle of the Indian Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, and, obviously they're just two examples of oceans, the weather conditions can get in such a state that it's not a very comfortable ride. And if you're not a good seafarer, you can't just get off because you're not enjoying it.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're obviously in security, you're going to be the one that people have got to rely on. You can't be somebody that gets seasick every.
Absolutely.
Can you?
Yeah, when you're on board vessel, obviously you'll form part of a watch, and part of your security duties will be obviously to do lookout duties and make sure that you've obviously got no problems or anybody making their way slowly up towards the vessel that are sort of a concern for you.
So when you're actually at sea in terms of security, what is the main problems that they might come across? Let's start from at sea as the first.
Okay, I think once the security detail joins the ship, they've got a very short time to make a good impression on the captain and the senior staff. I think for most merchant navy crews, to have the security duties, maybe not so much now, but in the early days, was quite a concern for them, because what they're taking normally was non-mariner people, putting them on board a ship, and it used to make some of the captains quite uncomfortable because they obviously, it's an unfamiliar sort of situation.
So would some captains perhaps see them as a bit of a liability, that they, in some way, the captain's got to look after them, and obviously from your training, you're trying to get rid of that, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, thing that people have got to remember is that the captain has the ultimate responsibility for the vessel. So it is his call for everything. If he wishes to cease security operations or wants to downscale it, he can do that because it is his ship at the end of the day. I think it is... to say that the captains are nervous of them, I would say maybe not so much now, because they've all had security details on board. Maybe some good, maybe not some so good, but they've had them, and obviously they've sort of welcomed them, and they form part of the ship's company now.
Okay, so say somebody with this qualification was taken on by a company that we'll talk about how they might get into a job later, but they're given their duty roster presumably, and there'll obviously be somebody in charge of the security detail, but say somebody is just like an operative under that main security officer. What would some of their daily duties be while they're on duty?
Well, as I said, they would form part of a watch, so they would be obviously on duty for their watch duty.
In terms of what is watch duty? What would they have to actually do?
Well, again, that all depends on the type of vessel it is, whether it's a gas tanker, whether it's a fuel tanker, whether it's a cargo vessel, whether it's a cruise liner. So the duty routine, although it will be security duties, could be slightly different. It all depends how they integrate with the rest of the crew. You'll normally find that a normal bridge staff will have part of the ship's crew that will be on lookout duties. So your security duty may not be on the bridge, you might be actually on the forecastle, you could be on the stern, you could be anywhere on board the ship, depending on where the team leader decides that perhaps it's a vulnerability.
Right, and would you be looking out to sea specifically, or you'd be looking for things around the ship, because obviously there's lots of people on the ship as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're on a normal ship, let's say a tanker, then you're going to get to know the crew quite quickly. So you'll understand who's there, who isn't, and their functions and their roles on board the ship. So from that side, maybe not so much of a concern. For a cruise ship, again, depending whether it's got passengers on board or it's just doing a clean transit to another port.
Is your job, is the job like a security officer would be for any other big building or company? In other words, would part of it not just be looking for outside people causing trouble, but would they be expected to keep an eye on staff and passengers too?
Don't really want to go into that one,
right,
because again it depends on the shipping line and the cruise company and whatever they see on
Absolutely.
that.
So I was just saying, so their main responsibility would be the protection of the ship and the people on it.
That is what it is. It's to basically enhance the captain's security details that he has, and to make sure that that ship transits from one area to the next safely and without any...
The main duties of the ship security detail, the M.S.Os, is basically you've got to harden the ship, which means you've got to you put barbed wire up and basically make it very awkward for people to get on board.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And you would help the crew to harden the vessel.
Yeah, and I think that's where the training, the experience comes in, therefore, because you know what to do and you know the points of vulnerability, I guess, as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, how about in the port? When the ship's actually in port, what would be the duties there?
Okay, well, all that kind of depends on the port you're going to and the security level that the port is at. Security levels normally work on 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. So depending on what level the port was at, the ship would have to come in at the same level or even higher. It can't be below the level of the security for the port. So it either has to match or be slightly higher. So again, it all depends on where it's transiting and where it's actually berthing in the world.
Right, and I guess the security detail would have foreknowledge of that, because they'd obviously know where they were going and they'd be in touch with the port security.
Yes, what normally happens once the ship's been allocated a berth, they'll obviously take on board their pilot, they'll make their transit in towards the berth. Once they secure to the berth, they'll normally be greeted by a member of the port staff who will be their port's facility securities officer, and he will get them to sign what is called a declaration of security. And on that declaration, it will just itemise all of the requirements and what is expected from both parties. So there's no ambiguities of who or what does what. So you know exactly what is expected from you.
Absolutely. So obviously that brought sort of paperwork into it. For the person who's like qualified at this level, is there a lot of paperwork, or is it just that kind of box ticking when you get into port?
No, you have all the daily routine logs, you have incident reports. If anything happens, you have to make notes of all that and fill the forms in. Yes, there is a fair bit of paperwork, but that is usually down to the team leader.
Right, yeah, and obviously they would take it as being reported to. What is the difference between, say, somebody that's coming on board under a team leader and the team leader themselves? Would the team leader just be more experienced, or will they have different levels of qualification?
The team, no, it's the same qualification, but the team leader will have a lot more experience.
So somebody coming in at, say, the basic level could work up to team leader pretty quickly once he'd got the experience and was proven.
I think that depends on the company they're working for and the rotational. I mean, some companies move people up slightly faster than others, and some people keep them at the same standards. I think it all depends on the company you work for.
Okay, it's obviously a very serious job, but what is the, if you like, the interesting or the fun side of it, if there is one? Is it does the fact that you're on board a ship going around, you obviously have some time off and things like that, you come into different ports. Do you have time to enjoy the places you're going to, or is it all hard work?
No, I think let's again go back a stage when we come to the selection process for people that are suitable for this. So obviously it isn't like crossing the channel for a few hours. When you're on board a vessel, you can be on there for weeks on end, and you may see not even the sign of another vessel or just a passing vessel miles away. So it's not all necessarily close water work. It's only gets interesting once you start getting closer into land, and let's say more going up towards the Suez Canal and such things like that.
There's a lot of boredom involved.
Yeah.
Because when you're not working, you're sleeping.
Yeah.
It's routines.
It's routines, 12-hour shifts, around the clock.
Yeah, or 4-hour watches, depending on what the watch system is.
Yeah. Do you tend to be sort of counted as being on when you're on the ship, and then do you get a certain amount of days off afterwards? How does it sort of like the schedule kind of work?
No, you work the routine for that voyage, and then at the end of the voyage you either, what we call in the merchant term, a pay off and go to another ship, or you wait for that ship to unload and then go on to its next voyage, or you return home. It depends again on the contract that you're on, whether it's some people just do one voyage and then go home and then do another voyage again another time, or people just go from one voyage and then jump to another ship, or just stay with the same ship but go into a hotel for a few days whilst the ship's unloading and then rejoin the ship again at the end of it. So it's all, it's a very, very fluid operation, if you like. You can either work a lot or you can sort of not work much.
Is it, in terms of industry, is it well paid, average paid, or poorly paid?
It's probably not as good as it used to be. I think, again, it all comes down to the company you're working for. Yeah. Some companies pay well, other companies perhaps not so well. And I think that comes down to the selection process of who you decide you want to work for.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question. If you want to get the slightly better jobs, it's perhaps a good idea to enhance your qualification with maybe other qualifications as well. Would you say something like that?
Absolutely, very much so. I'm sure John will drop in on this one. I think
basically you need to make yourself more employable than the next man. So obviously the more qualifications you can get, the better chance you'll have of a job.
What would you say would complement the marine security operations?
Well, most agencies and shipping companies require the M.S.O, obviously, and the FPOSI as a minimum qualification, first person on scene. But I would suggest that people go one further and do the MIRA as well, because when you're out in the middle of the ocean, there's not a hospital 5 minutes away, so you've got to have medicine in remote areas.
Yeah, I was going to say MIRA is medicine in remote areas, isn't it? Which is sort of like one up from FPOSI.
That's correct.
You have to have first person on scene
before you can do the
MSO, don't you?
Yeah.
That's great. And so if somebody then came, we've got a bit of a plan here. We've got somebody with the right mindset, can understand that it is something they do for the experience and the interest. They don't perhaps really say have problem with their own company. In other words, they can handle that kind of boredom. They can handle being on ship for that amount of time. They can handle being focused on their duties, shall we say. You're not there for a laugh. You're doing it. You're not just out to see the world, as it were, but you're doing a serious job. When somebody has that training, what would you? When somebody has been trained in the M.S.O, what is one of the best ways they can look for a job in that? Is there particular places they go? Do they have to be through agencies or shipping companies? How does that work?
Yeah, the idea of obviously having your training done in a well-established establishment like ourselves is the fact that we guide you to a certain degree, in the fact that we'll give you an idea of the places that perhaps are recruiting at the moment, telling you the places that maybe are not so good to jump straight into. And I think, this all goes right back to the beginning when we said about the best thing to do is for the person to get in touch with us so that we can have a chat with them, find out exactly where they want to go. Because some people think that the maritime is the best option, and sometimes being middle of the road, being able to do both sides is the best option. So we take them right from then and find out exactly what their mentality is, what they're looking to do. Because some of them come in with misconceived conceptions of kind of what it's going to be like, and we give them the nitty-gritty, as John so rightly said. The work here can be hard. There is a little bit of playtime in the fact that you do have some downtime, but if you're not enjoying the ride, as the saying goes, you can't get off. So you need to make sure these people are the right people, and that goes the same thing for companies. Doing a bit of research and finding out who are the best companies with the best reputations, they do the best rotations, they do the best pay. They are about there. Just a little bit of research on the internet, and you can find some very reputable companies out there to work for.
Okay, another question I have is, when we say it's marine securities, does it have to be on ship? Could it be oil rigs and things like that as well?
It could be absolutely anything. The M.S.O, I know that a lot of the oil companies for their platforms are asking that people do have the M.S.O certification along with their close protection, and as John said earlier, the MIRA is also a requirement for most oil companies. They see that as a preferable sort of tool for employment, if you like. So again, it's all about thinking about what you wanted to do. Stop, calm down for a moment, look at the options and see what are the best courses that are going to fulfill what you want for your future employment, because otherwise you can go off on a wild card, spend a lot of money and find out you end up with nothing. So it's very important.
In terms of money, can people get any kind of grants to go on the course that you offer in the M.S.O?
They can. Basically, most of our qualifications are level 3 qualifications, and if they're ex-MOD, they do classify for the learning credits, enhanced learning credits. So yes, funding can be available depending on how much they're entitled to, and obviously, whether or not they meet the criteria for that.
And you help them to apply for that, or you give them advice about what to do?
No, they usually sort the LCAS situation out themselves,
right.
Enhanced learning credits. They just go onto the internet, they download the forms, send them into the MOD, our education departments.
It's quite straightforward.
And they stamp them and approve
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and then they bring that form along with them day one of the course for us to claim our money.
Excellent, excellent. Do people that have this qualification and do that kind of job, do they tend to stay in it for years on end, or do they see it as a stepping stone to something else, or do they, I suppose it suits them, anyone stays in a job, don't they? But would you say that people that you've known with this qualification have gone on to different things, maybe port security or whatever?
Yeah, they do. I think, again, we're bringing it right back to where we were before. Planning at the beginning, middle of the road is the best way to go, because sometimes maybe the job opportunities aren't there on the maritime, which means you can go landside work, providing you've got the right qualifications. So again, yes, that's what it is. A lot of people do jump, they do a few transits doing the anti-piracy, and then they decide they're going to go back to landside, do a little bit of that, and then maybe they'll jump back over again. We've got a few of our friends that have done the courses through us, and they do jump from one side to the other. And it helps to keep them in constant employment, and it gives them the variety and, of course, the change sometimes that's sometimes needed to stop it from getting too stagnant in one sort of role.
So when you're suggesting the land side as well, do you mean something like a close protection course?
No, I mean working for an operation, let's say in Iraq and Afghanistan or somewhere like that, as a CP ground team.
Right.
So working as a security detail on the ground rather than being afloat.
Right.
So we always advise our students that when they're planning their training, I know I keep banging on about this, but it is so important that they decide and go middle of the road so that they can jump from one side to the other, because a lot of lads and lasses will spend their money doing one side and then they wish to do the other side, and they find out there's no more learning credits left and they have to start paying for it themselves. So just a little bit of a forward thought. Again, we do run a course, the Cerberus course, by where it allows you to do all of the training packages in one go. So you go from one course straight to the other, straight to the other, straight to the other, and you come out at the end with all the qualifications that will allow you to do that jump.
Right, so that's the Cerberus course.
That's the Cerberus.
And it covers
everything.
Yeah.
Yes, everything. Everything they'll need. There are some additional courses that they need to do. If they're thinking of doing the maritime, which is the STCW 95. A lot of them will understand what that terminology is. The thing with that one is that will deal with sea survival, that will deal with social responsibilities, that will deal with firefighting, and it will deal with a very low level medical training, more along the grounds of, let's say, first aid, which is not really good enough for being out at sea. You'll find that the ships, they normally have a very good medical cabin on there, and in there it'll be quite well established with a lot of equipment. The captains normally attend what is called the Captain's Medical Certification, but they do that so frequent and maybe don't get the opportunity to use it that maybe their skills are a little bit rusty. So having your own personnel that can deal with immediate care is essential, and of course it gives you a feeling of well-being and the fact that one of your friends there may end up saving your life if the worst happens.
Absolutely. So does somebody coming on the M.S.O course have to have the STCW 1995?
They don't have to have it to do the course, but if they want to go to sea, they will need to get it. They will need to do the STCW 95.
Yeah, I'll just clarify, the STCW 95 stands for Standard of Training Certificate and Watch Keeping. So that's just to clarify that.
Yes, that's fine, thank you. Yeah.
And they have to go somewhere else to do that. They can't do that with Transeacure.
No, we can actually arrange that for them.
Oh, right.
We can do that, but again, it is additional to the training that we normally perform.
Yeah.
We deal with security duties and all the work that goes there. We do the ancillary courses, but we pass them on to another.
Right. So STCW is more sea.
It's more being a
being
a seafaring. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about extra qualifications that people might need, and one of the more or less the standard one nowadays would be for somebody to have firearms training that is involved in the Maritime Security Operations. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what they would require for that job.
Yeah, the basic qualification, the firearms qualification, it's an ISO 28007 qualification, and it's a qualification that a lot of maritime companies require all their operatives to have. It's a firearms certificate. They may have been in the army, they've used certain weapons, but when you go on board these ships you use a lot of foreign weapons and stuff like that, so this firearms training gets you involved with all these different weapons.
Is there particular things that you need to bear in mind when you're carrying and possibly using firearms on a ship?
Not really, no. I mean, it's basic safety, really. At the end of the day, you're there to defend the ship. You don't fire on until you're fired upon yourselves. That sort of thing.
So if you've got Army or Navy or Air Force training in firearms, then you're likely to know what you need and just...
Rules of engagement, basically.
Yes,
so there are set rules of engagement.
That's right. So getting this extra qualification is not really going to be a problem for somebody in...
no, not really, no. Like I say, it's all different weapons they have to be trained on, and we can put them in touch with people that do that.
Yeah. And you say that most companies would expect you to have that, or is it absolutely...
I would say 99% of half-decent companies will expect you to have this.
So after you've done the Maritime Security Operations, you're going to need to take this course?
To go and work on the ships, basically you're going to want the M.S.O, Maritime Security Operations, you're going to want the firearms, you're going to want the STCW 95, you will need a yellow fever certificate to say you've had all your yellow fever jabs, and also a seaman's discharge book, which is basically like a passport.
Yeah.
That you hand that in to the purser on the ship when you join the ship. Then you are a member of the ship's crew, and when you leave, he stamps your book to say that you've been paid off.
That's excellent. Right, I think we've covered just about every angle of maritime security offered. Obviously, you do separate courses for close protection and other security services. There's even an anti-piracy course, isn't there, which takes it a bit further. But in terms of the Maritime Security Operations BTEC Level 3 qualification, if you need any more information about that, then Evan and John are here to help. Both the website address will be in the show notes for this episode on the Transeacure website, and full details of the courses that they offer there, plus telephone numbers if you want to have a chat. The web address is transeacuregroup.com, and we'll see you next time.